Back in the day, I'd be running up and down the beach because we didn't have an ATV then, much less a jet ski, and with a bullhorn or a whistle, trying to prevent as many accidents or drownings from happening. One of my favorite lines when I saw someone headed towards the water that just didn't look like they belonged there. For a lot of lifeguards, sitting in the tower is sort of like that book, Where's Waldo?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, who doesn't belong? Where's Waldo? Where's
Yeah.
the person that's going to get in trouble? Where's the hot spot? And your spidey senses start tingling, like, here comes trouble. And so you'd go and talk to people, and one of my favorite lines was, have you surfed out here before? Oh, yeah, I can do this. I go, well, I've never seen you out here before, so I'm glad. But getting out is the real easy part. It's getting back in that's super hard. So I hope if your leash breaks, you're going to be able to make it in, because I don't know if I can make it out today. It's really big for me. So good luck. And that I usually gave them pause.
Are you ready, boys? Start swimming.
That's Mark Cunningham. I'm Jamie Brisick. This is Soundings, brought to you by the Surfers Journal. The Journal is a member-supported publication made possible by sponsorship from FCS, Finisterre, Howler Brothers, Outerknown, Patagonia, Rainbow Sandals, Vans, and Yeti. More like a book than a magazine, the Journal delivers 136 pages of independent storytelling every 8 weeks, covering the people, culture, travel, and art of surfing. To learn more and to subscribe, please visit surfersjournal.com. This episode of Soundings is presented by Costa Sunglasses. If you're anything like me and you spend lots of time around the water, then you know just how important it is to have a good pair of shades. And since 1983, when a group of intrepid outdoorsmen set out to make sunglasses that could stand up to the harsh environments they regularly encountered, Costa remains the choice in eyewear among those committed to life on the water. So whether you're diving in, climbing a board, suiting up, sliding one, leaning back, or all the above, head to costadelmar.com to grab your pair and to see what's out there. Mark Cunningham, aka the Human Fish, is hailed as one of the greatest body surfers of all time. He grew up in Hawaii, landed a job as a lifeguard in 1976, and for nearly 30 years guarded primarily at Ehukai Beach Park with a view straight into the barrel of pipeline. Through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, Mark won nearly every body surfing event he entered. But, as Mark would be the first to tell you, body surfing is not about winning or losing. I used to see him out at Big Pipe, the sole surfer without a board. With that Superman-style extended arm, he'd fly across giant glassy faces. His connection with the water was preternatural. Mark embodies that famous Bruce Lee quote, "Be like water," more than just about any human I can think of. Mark retired from lifeguarding in 2005 at age 49. In recent years, he's become an obsessive reefcomber, finding fins, sunglasses, watches, etc. on the ocean floor. He's also become a visual artist, though Mark resists the title, using his reefcomber findings in sculptures and assemblages. We spoke at the home he shares with his wife KK on the south shore of Oahu, with views of Diamond Head and the very surf spots where Mark grew up body surfing. So Mark, you became a lifeguard in 1976.
The good old days, James. Thank you so much. Yes, the summer of 1976 was the first year I started working for the city and county of Honolulu. My actual first lifeguarding gig was the summer of 75 for the city of Santa Barbara at East Beach and Ledbetter. I was going to school at UC Santa Barbara playing water polo. And if you wanted to be on the team in the fall, you had to play for the summer league and the club team. And what's fun is that was the summer after Jaws came out. And nobody went swimming that summer. It was just amazing. And I was so stoked to be in Santa Barbara because going to school there, I'm going off core track from lifeguarding here, but I remember walking by an auditorium on campus one evening, and there was a surf movie playing. I went, holy hell, what's this? And I peeked in, and there was George Greeno's Innermost Limits of Pure Fun on the big screen. One of the Santa Barbara student surfers had a connection. And I go, oh my God, here I am in Greeno land. And what I'm getting at is that one of my coworkers was Merv Larson, this incredible surf skier. I forget what surf movie has this sequence of Merv riding a surf ski. That's just phenomenal. But that was my first summer of lifeguarding. 75 in Santa Barbara. The next summer I moved back home and hooked up with Honolulu, city and county. And that winter I moved out to the North Shore.
And stationed primarily at Pipeline, yeah?
Yeah. I got real lucky. I was in the best shape of my life because of water polo. We were doing twice-a-day workouts in the weight room, swimming, and water polo practice. And I was riding my bike between Isla Vista and Santa Barbara City and back because I didn't have a car. And so I felt so stoked to be at Ehukai just because of the sandbar and because of Pipeline and how good the body surfing was in that neighborhood. And one of my first partners was a friend of mine, dear friend, Sean Ross. And Sean was this amazing pipo boarder, the wooden boogie board. And Sean would charge Pipeline on his pipo board. And we'd ride waves occasionally in the summertime at Point Panic. And Sean said, I sure could use a young, strong partner out here at the North Shore with me. And he kind of opened the door for me out there.
And so what was the scene like then? I mean, this would have been like the era of Jerry Lopez, Rory Russell, Jackie Dunn, et cetera?
Yeah. It was also the era of no cable TV and no Foodland and no surf forecasts. And it must be present to win. There are simpler times, of course. And I guess right about then was the advent of professional surfing. And I felt very, very fortunate to sort of be young and fit and strong and have a front row seat to what was happening out at the North Shore with the Triple Crown and seeing the international cast of characters come to the shores for a couple of months and try to make it happen. And this was well before corporate sponsors were paying rent and groceries and, survival fees. These guys were really doing whatever they could to make ends meet and teaming up together and eating Simon and peanut butter and charging and wonderful relationships with shapers and glassers. And, it was fun. It was neat. It was the birth of pro surfing and what's happening nowadays.
Mm-hmm. And were you friendly with a lot of the pros at that time?
Yes and no. I was never a board surfer, so I was never really in tight with the clique. I knew Jack Reeves, and I would see Dick Brewer, and I'd see these guys around on the North Shore more as neighbors than as you guys are building my boards. The pro surfers, I knew the local guys, of course. I did a couple of high school surf meets early on, and I saw the writing on the wall that I should become a body surfer as opposed to a board surfer. There was one high school meet at Ala Moana, and somehow I made it to a semi. Maybe I only had to advance through one heat to be in the semis all of a sudden, but it was a heat with, I think there's Larry Bertelman. I think there was Kainoa Downing. There was Joey Carroll. There was Buzzy Kerbox with 2 broken arms, and he still beat me. And I forget who else. Maybe Michael Ho, and I just saw the writing on the wall.
And had you already been body surfing at that point? Like, did you already have a connection?
I started off as a board surfer on the South Shore growing up in town. Dad was a member of the Elks Club, so I kind of learned out at Tongs on a styrofoam board back then. And then board surfing in front of my house at New Valley at a spot called Picos on just horrible transition boards without leashes. And I was 14, 15, going through a growth spurt, very uncoordinated, no leashes. So it appeared as though I was body surfing and swimming after my board more than I was standing on it and surfing. So a neighborhood guy saw me, Herbie Knudsen, a mentor of mine, and he was a lifeguard at the time at Sandy Beach, and he sort of introduced me to Sandy Beach and Makapu in a pair of duck feet. And that just felt so much more comfortable and natural and forgiving than board surfing. But I still love to board surf.
And so doing it at Sandy's and sort of the more popular spots, at what point did you bring body surfing out to Pipeline?
I started a couple of times. We ran out to the North Shore in high school. Going to Honolulu out to the North Shore back in the day, it was before the freeway. And so you went along the windward side, and it's just the classic old thing, surfers coming back from the North Shore. You'd stick your hand out the window, thumbs up or thumbs down, or the wave's good or the wave's bad, are they big or small? It's pretty funny. And I think my body surfing was more, not so much in high school, but when I started lifeguarding out there. And it was just an essential skill of surf lifesaving out at the North Shore back in the day, being a strong swimmer and being able to use the currents going in and out. And of course, this was well before jet skis. And so it was the fins and rescue tube and rescue board that got the job done.
So, okay, so I get it. So you might have like gone out for a rescue, and in the process of that, you'd body surf a wave in. And
yeah, of course. But I mean, I was so lucky. Early on, there was a little rental that my girlfriend and I had at Sunset Point on O'Puola Road. Then friends of ours who had a beach house at Cavella Bay, their house opened up, and we had a beautiful oceanfront house at a part of Cavella Bay that had this wonderful neighborhood there. Bosco and Ronnie Burns were down the street from us. Buddy Dumphy was across the street, and nice, quiet neighborhood there. And I was then moved down to Kainui Road, and back in the good old days, a lifeguard salary could afford a beachfront house out there renting. And so I was body surfing before, after, and during work because it was literally in the backyard for so many years.
body surfing is interesting. It's I body surfed pretty much all my life, but I kind of came to it late, and I was really inspired by the Come Hell or High Water film that the Malloys made. I think Keith Malloy made. And there were great underwater shots that just sort of showed the physical body connection with the shape of the wave,
right?
The way the kind of skin flutters as you're going along. And at the time I was spending a lot of time in Rio, and Rio has a lot of these kind of wedgy, ricochet type waves that are perfect for body surfing.
Fun.
But what I sort of found, having surfed my entire life, is that with body surfing, it's kind of these little moments, like on a surfboard, you can make long sections and you get a long ride. Typically a body surfing ride is shorter, but more heightened, more concentrated. You feel more, you're in tune with the wave in such an interesting way.
Yeah. The actual riding of the wave in body surfing is like 1% of the experience.
Yeah.
It's in surfing, it's maybe 5% of the experience, actual riding a wave. It's all that going to the beach and prepping and checking out the surf and using the currents, paddling out, jockeying with the lineup, waiting for your wave. You ride it, kick out, and then paddle out and wait and wait and wait and wait, and maybe you get another wave. And even for body surfing, the rides are so short that experience of actual wave riding is even less. But it is different. You're not going as fast or as far or as tubed or as radical as you are on a board. But once again, I just always keep getting back to how embracing and loving and actually surrounded, I'm about to drown in Mother Nature. It feels so good.
No, it's so true. There's a quote, there's a book by Iggy Pop called I Need More. And it's a memoir, and he talks about performing in his life. And there's one bit where he talks about being on stage among these big amps and all that kind of electricity from the music. And he says that his entire nervous system has perhaps been shifted and changed a little bit from doing that so much. Similarly, I would imagine body surfing these intense waves and feeling it in a way that maybe like forgive my crass analogy, but the surfboard is like the condom separating the connection to the ocean, whereas you're riding condomless as a body surfer.
Well, that's always been one of my old tired jokes, that body surfing with a wetsuit is like sex with a condom. It feels good, but it just doesn't feel the same.
Yeah, I mean, you really are.
But I want to get back to what you said about Iggy Pop there, feeling it. And there's so much pressure on you being immersed in the water. The water is just pressing on you from every direction imaginable. Where we play in the shorebreak, in the impact zone, you're completely surrounded by, there's the land, there's the ocean, and there's the sky. And you're just right in the middle of that huge cosmic impact zone. And there is all that energy from earth, land, sea, and sky sort of coming together inside of you. And the waves don't have to be big. I mean, that, size just adds a whole nother dimension to it, of course. But just being immersed in Mother Nature, it just charges my batteries, keeps me going.
Yep.
Keeps me stoked.
Mm-hmm. Is there a best ride you've ever had? I mean, and I say that because for the layman body surfer, me being one of them, the thing I like about body surfing is my ego is sort of taken out of it. When I go surfing, there's a sort of performance level that I'm trying to reach, or there's a baseline that I'm trying to stay at. Whereas when I go body surfing, as you say, it's this all immersive kind of holistic thing where, like, from the moment you jump into the water and start kicking your feet, fluttering your feet with the fins, it started, right?
Right.
So getting a wave is just it's part of that experience. But if we were to put it in the context of like a great ride that you've had, how would you describe that?
There have been so many, James, it's hard to cherry pick, as it were. They're all just so wonderful and unique. And I've been asked this question before. My go-to answer is usually my most recent wave, and that was at Makapu. And at Makapu, there are the beautiful cliffs to add to all that natural energy that I was referring to earlier. And just got a real long, fat Makapu-style ride that was really memorable to me. I've had long rides, of course, are very memorable in body surfing because most rides are just a second or two or three, which is something that Keith Malloy was so worried about when he was making Hell or High Water after his first day or two of shooting. He's going, how the hell am I going to make a movie out of waves that are just kerplunk over the falls and it's over?
Yep.
But he did stitch the story together rather well. One of my longest rides was at Puerto Escondido, and I think they call it La Punta, sort of off to the left-hand side of the bay, very popular with the bodyboarders. And I just had this crazy long left that went and went and went. And that's one that's in the memory bank for a long time. And what really turns me on is so many of these videos that I've been seeing of Mexico, of Barra, and the neighborhood, those little sandbar point waves. And a lot of them are too fast and too hollow. But anytime I see a surfer do a cutback, I go, I could body surf that. Anytime a wave slows down and pushes a bit, I'm going, oh, I could be in front of that getting pushed. And then another long ride, which is just absolutely amazing, and this happened 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, and I think it was could have been during the Hui shootout. It could have been during the Pipeline Pro that happens in February. And Water Patrol was letting me lurk on the shoulder during the contest, and one swung wide that wasn't big or exceptional. The board surfers didn't get it, but I saw an opportunity, and it wasn't big by any stretch, 4 or 5 feet, and it just had the nice soft angle on it, and it pushed me across the channel and into gums, and I ended up by the Lifeguard tower. And it was no big deal. I don't know if anyone had even seen the wave. There was a contest going on. But I was just stoked on my Speedos going, oh my God, did you see that? Did you see that? To myself. But I was just so stoked that at age 60-something, I was able to get the longest ride I've ever had at Pipeline. It just connected and lined up. And so I guess that's why we keep paddling out, because you just never know when you're going to get a good one.
Yeah.
And so much of wave riding gets sort of redundant to me. A little goes a long way. And my sessions are much shorter than they've ever been because I feel like it's Groundhog's Day of sorts, like been here, done this.
Yep.
And I still need to scratch the itch, but for not nearly as long. But I mean, I'm at a point in my life where I'm not seeking out the biggest wave of my life, the hollowest wave of my life. I just sort of like to get my jollies from the ocean and get my exercise and get my batteries recharged. But still, just a few years ago that I got my longest ride at Pipeline, I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah. You've body surfed at Chopu in Tahiti, yeah?
I tried to. I swam out there a couple of times, but sort of got my ass handed to me.
I would imagine.
Yeah, that wave is just... There's a reason God invented surfboards, and it's for waves like Chopu.
Yeah.
It's like you just got to go fast. You can't go fast body surfing. You're lucky you get in a hook in it. You can hang in there and it pushes you for a while. But, oh man, Chopu, just, God, what more is there to say? You look at those waves and you get scared.
Yeah. Yep.
And to see Raimana and the boys, Mata'ai, and all the other regulars out there, it's just mind-blowing how good they are.
Yeah.
And how brave they are and how skillful they are. Taking on a wave like that. I don't think a body surfer has any reason to be out there.
Yeah. Have you had any real bad injuries, wipeouts?
Knock on wood, no.
You bang into the
Sprains and strains and scratches, a few stitches, yeah. My worst wipeout was a silly board surfing adventure at Backdoor many, many years ago. I had wiped out and then got caught inside by the second wave and just ragdolled in one of the caverns there and just kind of ricocheting off both sides and just came up with eyes as big as saucers, just going, oh my God, I really got my bell rung there. And you've never seen me at Backdoor since.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
To see the way that the pro surfers take on Backdoor and off the wall is just mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
They are so skillful and brave and strong. The athletes that take that wave on, it's a radical, scary wave. And, you know, it's next to the deadliest wave in the world, Pipeline.
Yeah. No, interesting. So being stationed for nearly 20 years at Pipeline as a lifeguard, kind of staring into this wave,
Right.
staring into down the barrel of the pipeline tube. Your relationship with Pipeline? Tell me about that.
It's been a long one. You kind of fell in love. I fell in love with it going through the magazines and the surf movies before I had even been out there. It's just such a unique piece of ocean. Most people think of Pipeline and you think of 6 to 8 to 10 foot super hollows, super deep, with the cast of characters that are there nowadays, Mason and John and Jamie O'Brien and everyone else who absolutely charges there. But those, images that are burned into our memory banks are maybe 5% of the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of times it's too big, it's too north, it's really small. I have more fun on the small days where I don't have to worry about losing my life. And she just has so many moods. She goes basically dormant for half the year at least. But every now and then a random little wind swell or a west hurricane swell will wrap through in the middle of summer. And once again, must be present to win. You sort of have to live or lifeguard or be there dialed in to get a piece of it. But just to have witnessed so many amazing rides from the lifeguard tower or walking on the beach, or it was literally the backyard for quite a few years, or sitting on the back of the jet ski with water patrol, or, jockeying in the lineup with the water photographers and bodyboarders and other body surfers, and just feeling that energy of the lineup and trying to get as close to it as possible without getting in anyone's way or getting caught in the impact zone. There's just so much energy there. And it's, I guess, the most famous wave in the world.
I would say so.
There are bigger waves. There are more dangerous waves. There might be hollower waves, chopu. There's certainly emptier waves around the world. But for all the media exposure that it's received over the years, somehow I ended up at the most famous wave in the world. And I still go out there, not nearly as often as I used to, living in Honolulu and being a bit put off by the crowds that are all over the thing. But I still got to go. I still got to swim. I still want to see what's going on.
Yep. Is there a surfer that you regard as the best performer out there?
The surfer is the best performer out there. For a lifetime body of work, I would say Mike Stewart. Mm-hmm. Mike's pretty much dedicated his life to being on it when he can, along with taking on a global tour of, bodyboarding and promoting his products. Derek Ho absolutely dedicated his life to it. He's the most experienced guy out there. You don't see a lot of old board surfers out at Pipeline. It's a young man's game. I think your reflexes have to be really, really quick. You have to be strong. You have to be mentally in the right frame of mind to deal with the wave itself and jockeying with the whole crowd that's going on out there. Mm-hmm. Oh, God, they're just Jamie O'Brien, Jamie's backyard, of course, what he did out there. Now it's John and Ivan and Nate, their backyard there.
Yeah.
Who knows, what Kelly would have done there had he lived there year round and wasn't, following his career around the world. But, every swell, every dog has its day. And there have been so many great, phenomenal surfers over the years and different eras, so to speak. A guy will be hot or a flash in the pan, and then he kind of goes on to adult life somewhere.
Yeah.
Or he just loses a little bit of quickness or the desire to be there.
Yeah.
And it's fun to watch it evolve and there's a whole generation of young guys there. I go out there now and there's just a whole school of minions, these little kids who should be in school wearing helmets with dads pushing them into waves, and here they come. Here's the next generation.
Yeah. It's interesting. Some of the guys you mentioned, Jamie O'Brien in particular, John as well, but there's a sense of almost play, certainly with Jamie O'Brien, where that kind of nimbleness that you need to make it over the ledge, it does seem to favor someone who sort of keeping it light. I remember there was a great quote, I think it was from Tom Curran, but it was something like, fear is the way you get hurt. Like when you begin to, once the fear enters in and you have that sort of pulling back,
yes,
is how you get hurt. And when
I can relate to that.
yeah. But so many of the guys who surf it really well, it's almost as if Mason Ho being a great example. Their minds are almost already down the face before they've even hopped to their feet. You can almost see this sort of forward momentum and this kind of fitting with the wave and this urgency, and they're so in the feel of the wave.
Yeah, and the Florence brothers and Billy Kemper and, like you say, Mason, who's the most entertaining surfer in the world. You could just watch him surf anywhere, any wave, anytime because of his unique approach. And, he's put out a lot of videos of him surfing crazy, tiny little shallow, hollow waves with rocks and reef all over the place. But he'll also charge 10-foot second reef pipeline pull in and have just as fun and loosey-goosey approach to it. With just so pleasing on the eye. And getting back to pleasing on the eye, that's always what made Jerry such a pleasure to watch. Is his whole thing was less was more, seemingly. He just, his whole approach was simple and casual and straightforward and just impeccable timing. And he made it look so casual and so easy on the deadliest wave in the world.
Yeah.
And it's fun when you can see that harmony on such a wild wave.
Yeah, for sure. Being stationed at Pipeline, that's a big responsibility on a big day.
Yeah.
What, talk to me about some of the heavy experiences you've had.
Yeah. So I was, 20 something, and a couple years into my career, I was up there full time. I said, holy shit, I'm filling Butch Van Artstalen's trunks here. These are some big trunks to fill. And Eddie Aika was down the beach at Waimea Bay, and fuck, I'm running with the big dogs now. I better step up my game or take it pretty serious. And we did, and I was just so thankful to wonder if it wasn't, Mark saves the world. I had incredible partners, teammates over the years. The first being Sean Ross, who pulled me into the tower there. Terry Ehukai, my dear friend. We were partners for a really, really long time. Terry, of course, went on to found Hawaiian Water Patrol with Brian Kealana and the boys. And so I was so lucky to have Terry as such a solid, strong partner. Worked with Rick Williams for many, many years. Steve Culbreth, Derek Dorner. He was usually up at sunset, but Derek would come sit in the tower every now and then at Ehukai. And back in the day, I'd be running up and down the beach because we didn't have an ATV then, much less a jet ski, and with a bullhorn or a whistle, trying to prevent as many accidents or drownings from happening. One of my favorite lines when I saw someone headed towards the water that just didn't look like they belonged there. For a lot of lifeguards, sitting in the tower is sort of like that book, Where's Waldo? And it's like, who doesn't belong? Where's Waldo? Where's the person that's going to get in trouble? Where's the hot spot? And your spidey senses start tingling, like, here comes trouble. And so you'd go and talk to people, and one of my favorite lines was, have you, surfed out here before? Oh, yeah, I can do this. I go, well, I've never seen you out here before, so I'm glad, but getting out is the real easy part. It's getting back in that's super hard. So I hope if your leash breaks, you're going to be able to make it in, because I don't know if I can make it out today. It's really big for me. And so good luck. And that usually gave them pause. A lot of times back in the day, it's changed now. It's been 16, 17. It's been a while since I've been in the tower out there. God bless those guys that are in there now dealing with today's crowds. Yeah. And people wanting to prove themselves and give it a go. But it was kind of neat. Like early on, you knew who most of the characters were just from the boards they were riding, their style of surfing. And on the big days, you knew who most of the players were paddling out. When you saw a fresh face, you'd keep an extra eye on them. One thing in the tower, after a horrendous wipeout, you always have the binoculars on the impact zone, making sure the head pops up. And obviously, you're looking for any board that might be tombstoning with, someone dangling as a sea anchor underneath. And what most people don't realize is that, oh my God, lifeguarding a pipeline, it must be insane. You just pay attention. You know where to watch. And if someone gets in trouble, they're in the impact zone for one wave, maybe two. Then they're getting pushed in or pushed to the current. So by the time you get to them, they've sort of been pushed to somewhat safer water. I mean, the impact zone at Gums pulling through to Ehukai can hammer and hammer and hammer for quite a while. But you're not in that pipe impact zone for more than a wave or two. And more often than not, another board surfer, body surfer, or boogie boarder has gotten to them before the lifeguards get there. Yeah. Surfers, for all the smack and shit we talk about one another, we're really good about keeping an eye out for one another. Someone's in trouble, people start screaming and waving and whistling, and people converge on that to try to keep a head above water.
Yep. And are the instincts still there, though? Are you still, when you walk down to the beach, you kind of can't stop being a lifeguard?
Of course. Yeah. There's a saying in the business called lifeguards for life, and it's sort of a play on words that we're sort of always on duty. Yeah, when you're in the tower, you're there to save lives and protect lives. But even when you retire or you're out surfing and you're not in your uniform, you're still kind of, the spidey senses are up, making sure everyone comes up after a wipeout on a big day. Yep.
Yeah. The reef combing. So what kind of stuff are you pulling out of the reef?
Reef combing. Wherever people surf and swim, it is amazing what they leave behind. It's amazing how many fins people lose. Futures, FCS, even glassed on. They don't glass on fins nearly as often as they used to, but I will still find those on occasion. I have a wonderful collection of broken and dead watches, a nice assortment of GoPros, a handful of cell phones, weird things that humans drop in the ocean. Occasionally you find jewelry. I will find swim fins that bodyboarders and snorkelers will lose out there. Occasionally you find fishing poles that fishermen have dropped. Lots of leashes tangled up on the reef that surfers abandon ship on, and they're just dancing around on the reef out there. I love the fins. I started picking up fins out of pipeline years and years ago. I started doing this because when I was still working, I would collect the fins that the bodyboarders and body surfers had lost and would sell them back to them. They would know to come to the Ehukai Tower and they could buy a single fin from Mark for $5. And that would help with gas and lunch money. And that would help them not swim around in circles anymore because they'd have two fins on. Once again, the snorkeling, the reef combing, I borderline get more joy and pleasure from snorkeling and skate hunting than I do body surfing because I don't have to jockey in the lineup.
Yeah.
I can kind of kick out and no one's trying to drop in on me or sit deeper than me and grab a wave that I've been waiting for. I just kind of get pushed around and it's just a whole beautiful fantasy land down there with a snorkel on and a faceplate, seeing what's underneath us.
Yeah, kind of a treasure hunting. And I remember some years ago, I think there's a story of maybe you pulled a fin off the reef that belonged to Joe Tudor. Like some of them have stories, right? Some of them.
Well, they do. Yeah, it's hard because there's so many of them. But I believe, yeah, I did find a single fin that Tudor claimed came off one of his pipe boards. So that was fun. But I see these things and you wonder whose board did it come off of? How many waves did it ride? Like, imagine if this is a fin that got knocked loose off of one of Kelly or Andy's boards. And can you imagine where that fin had been? The waves it had ridden, how deep in a tube it had been.
Yeah.
Places where most humans will never ride, a wave that Kelly or Andy had ridden. And maybe that fin had been with them when he went to South Africa. Maybe it had been in his board when he surfed Tavarua. Maybe that fin had been vibrating through Mexico. And you just wonder how much energy this fin had cleaved through on waves. And then it falled off, or a surf leash hog ties it and snaps it off. And then it's at the bottom of the ocean rolling around for a while. And how many thousands or millions of waves rolled over it. Once again, all that energy in the impact zone, the energy of waves rolling over these fins, and then it could be days, it could be months, it could be years later, I come across it and I pick it up and I go, ta-da, a fin. Where has this thing been and what has it seen and what has rolled over it? I just love that energy that a fin symbolizes.
Yeah.
And it's a love of surfing.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't do much of it, but I love surfing.
Yep. The reef combing, it's almost a self-portrait of sorts, you know. I mean, when you look at all the years you've spent in the water and these things that have been sort of, as you say, rolling around in the ocean. I mean, you occupy this very unique position in the surfing world, and I know it probably better than you do because I hear people speaking that they might be too shy to stay in front of you, but the respect you have globally is so big, and you sort of weave through it so easily and almost unknowingly, sort of casually. But having spent all these years, you know, being regarded as the human fish as a body surfer, but then all the years in you know, at Pipeline, moving through different generations of surfing circles of the elite surfers, it's really unique.
I feel very blessed, and I'm so filled with gratitude, Jamie, for this life that I've had. And I don't know, I guess there's a little part of my nature that, au contraire, it's like the rebel of sorts. Like, you know, when everyone's zagging, you try to zig every now and then. And this very prestigious private school, Punahou, that I went to in Honolulu, has produced countless lawyers and doctors and tech geniuses and a president of the United States. And you're supposed to go off to a Ivy League college and do great things. I ran out to the North Shore and became a lifeguard. There I was, a lifeguard surrounded by the greatest waves in the world. And like I say, some of the greatest board shapers and glassers around and craftsmen. And I was a body surfer instead of a surfer. And so it's fun knowing these guys and yet not having to compete with them.
Yeah.
I'm big a fanboy of all the pro surfers. I just so admire what they do. And I think they maybe appreciated me on a couple of levels. One, that there's a chance that maybe I would save their ass one day out at Pipeline or Ehukai. Countless guys have come up looking for first aid supplies after the fact at the Lifeguard Tower. So there might have been like, let's be nice to Mark. He might save our life one day. And another part I joke, I was never a threat for their sponsorship dollars. No body surfer was ever going to take away a salary from any of the Billabong or Quicksilver, Rip Curl A-team riders. But I am very, very blessed that I was sponsored a little bit by Quicksilver for quite a few years. They had a label brand, Quicksilver Edition. And because of that, I was able to go to France a couple of times. I was able to go to Tavaru a couple of times. I was able to go to Mexico a couple of times. And so I'm very thankful for my notoriety got me to parts of the world. I think it's amazing that a lifeguard body surfer has been to France and Ireland and Mexico and Tavarua and Panama and a handful of other spots in Japan. And that there are wave riding lifeguards and body surfers there. They go, hey, Mark, how's it? Stoked you're here.
Yeah.
And, it's fun being a surfer. And
yeah.
I also like I'm very, very proud of being a Hawaiian lifeguard and being being a lifeguard. And I'm not the first lifeguard by any stretch of the imagination who is a good body surfer. I guess there were so many role models that went in front of me. You think back to the Pete Petersons and the Tommy Zahns. Maybe Mike Doyle was a lifeguard for a while. Dave Rockland was a lifeguard for a while. Peter Cole was a lifeguard for a while. Maybe Ricky Gregg and Buzzy Trent. A lot of these guys, you look back at their resume and there's a summer or two or three. LJ Richards, still a career lifeguard. I really looked up to these guys who were, I hate to even use the word waterman. It might be the first time I have during this talk. It's a tough one to sort of describe or define, but these were guys that were heroes of mine.
Yeah.
That were helpful. They were helpers.
Mm-hmm.
They were first responders, and yet they were surfers too. And so once again, this lifeguard surfer, there are many before me, and there are many in the tower right now who, out at the North Shore now, there's Dave Wassel, crazy big wave hellman. Guilherme Tamega, who's a 6 or 7 time world bodyboarding champion.
Mm-hmm.
And back in the day, I got to, there was Jimmy Blears, a former world surfing champion at Sunset Beach. Before me, Tiger Asperry was out at the North Shore. Eddie Aikau, Butch Van Arsdale, and out at the West Side, Buffalo Kealana and his sons Brian. I think even Rusty lifeguarded for a little while. So I'm just very, very honored to be a link in the chain. And once again, I have no idea what this chain is pulling or where it's going or what it's holding on to. But I just, honored to be a link in this lifeguard chain.
Yeah, I would imagine, though, it's given you a kind of foundation, a compass of sorts. And I say that because I have a very dear friend who's a martial artist, and he became a black belt in Taekwondo at a very young age. And we've known each other for 30 years or more. Uh-huh. And he is, so solid in so many different situations. And I've always thought, well, that's the martial arts training that was there. And I would imagine being a lifeguard, you would have had that. There was a sense of you have to stay physically fit. And there's a sense of sort of alertness and focus and attention that I would imagine it's in all aspects of your life. It's not just when you're on the beach.
I hope so. I mean, the primary job of a lifeguard is, it's real simple. Watch the fucking water. don't look at the phone, don't look at the girls at the beach, don't see what's going on in the parking lot. I mean, you kind of got to every now and then, but basically watch the water. And so, of course, you're watching the tide and the wind and the storm and the clouds offshore, and you try to take in the big picture and see how it's all sort of connected. And you do that day after day, sit in the penalty box for 8 hours a day. And granted, you get out for a beach patrol or a swim or a paddle or an ATV ride, and that would be fun. But yeah, you kind of pay attention because worst case scenarios that can happen to people. And so you're sort of trained or prepared or on the edge of your seat for it a lot of the times. On the big days, there's definitely some eggy energy going through the tower, like, be on your game, boys. Anything could happen.
Yeah. What was the greatest moment you had as a lifeguard? Is there something you can think of that was sort of the most rewarding or?
The thing I'm most proud of is starting our junior lifeguard program here in Hawaii. It wasn't the heroic, huge rescue, and I applied a compress and stopped bleeding and put a tourniquet around his neck. No, I don't know. It's the big picture.
Yeah.
It's so hard to pinpoint moments. It's the whole body of work. But getting back to, starting the junior lifeguard program was something I'm very proud of. Down under, the guys call it nippers. It's been going on for years and years, and it's the junior guards in California. They've been doing it forever and ever, and it took a while for us to get started here. But my partner, Kenny Rust, and I did it the first couple of summers just at Kailua Beach to see how it would fly, and we were so thankful to Myra Aikau, Clyde and Eddie's sister, who ran the Ocean Recreation Department for Parks and Recreation here in Honolulu. Myra lent us a bunch of her, old boogie boards and expertise and tips. And then eventually it grew to the four corners of the island. Our lifeguard department is broken up into the four districts. District 1 is Waikiki and Ala Moana. District 2 is Hanauma Bay to the windward side, Makapu and Sandy. District 3 is the North Shore, and then District 4 is the leeward side, Maile, Makaha, Yokohama. And then all four of our districts had it, and then the neighbor islands, caught wind of it. And so hundreds of kids teenagers go through this program every summer, and we have a nice junior lifeguard championship at the end of the summer. And occasionally we'll send a couple of kids to California for the USLA Nationals at the end of summer. And seeing guys that are in the tower now that were junior guards is very rewarding to me.
Yeah.
And once again, it's just the links in the chain.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Very nice. Any stories, any anecdotes that we've missed that would be good?
Of course.
Okay, let's.
But I can't remember any of them, James. I get a little nervous with a microphone in front of my face. Sometimes I feel like Forrest Gump. I got to talk story with George Downing a handful of times in the Waimea Tower as he was counting waves in intervals, trying to decide whether or not the eddy was going to go. I was able to talk story with Ben Ipo when he was coaching kids at Ehukai Beach Park. Young Andy and Bruce and Sonny Garcia running around like crazy wild teenagers that they were, and Ben trying to point them in the right direction. I was on a surf trip with Tom Curran a couple of times. How the hell does that happen in one's life? On a Indonesian boat with Kelly Slater and Rob Machado. How lucky am I for that to have happened to me? Jerry Lopez is a dear old friend of mine. And occasionally I go to Australia for a bodysurfing competition, and, Mark Richards and Simon and Mark Warren, they'll give me a big how do you do. And good God, Bob McTavish we've sort of become pals. We only see each other a handful of times, but we know we have all this common salt water that's run around us and in our veins. And I got to kick a camera rig around with George Greeno years ago, and hang with George Greeno and listen to some of his wonderful insights. I used to help Don King kick around a big camera rig. I was in a body surfing contest that was on ABC Wide World of Sports that Fred Hemmings produced as part of his pro surfing package that got Larry Lindbergh and the Wide World of Sports crew here. I'm forgetting so many people. There's Randy Rarick and Bernie Baker, friends and neighbors out at the North Shore for years and years, that absolutely worked their asses off to, create an incredible lifestyle. I hate the word lifestyle, but livelihood for so many people through pro surfing, the Triple Crown out there and the cast of characters and sponsors and knucklehead surfers that, those guys had to deal with, and, putting the show on. And once again, so many surfers from around the world who came out to the North Shore for a couple of years, and the photographers. I want to apologize to all those water photographers where my big head was in their shot out at Pipeline, because I was still trying to get a good wave there. But I'm so thankful for, everyone in the surfing world I've crossed paths with, in the tower, on the beach, in the lineup, or, at some surf movie or coffee shop or what have you. I'm just stoked. And so my heroes now are the guys that rode it long and hard. I want to be like Peter Cole. I want to be like Woody Brown. I want to be like Warren Harlow. I want to be like Fred Van Dyke. These guys, that last group of names are guys that came from California without any sponsorship whatsoever. And the North Shore was kind of the Wild West, and they just fell in love with surfing and said, I've got to make a living here and plant my flag in the sand right here, oceanfront on the 7 Mile Miracle, and savor the beauty of it all. And, I still love the beauty and the magic of what the North Shore provides. And I hope I get to enjoy it for many, many more years.
And how do you do that? Do you still get in the water every day?
Not every day. I think I mentioned earlier, a little bit goes a long way. I still need to get my gills wet. And sometimes they're 2-a-day sessions. Sometimes it's once a day. Sometimes I don't go in for a week or two because I'm busy traveling or doing artwork or being a grandpa, and or the wave or conditions aren't quite right, or I just don't need to scratch the itch, or I don't have the desire. But we definitely still need to get the gills wet. And sometimes it's on a longboard. I think it's a 1010 Josh Hall glider that I ride on the South Shore a lot. That's really fun. I have a weird 6-something or another quad fin. I think it's a surf tech that'll annoy a lot of surfers. And here's what blows my mind. It's like getting back to all those names that I mentioned. In hindsight, I wish I had gotten a custom board from Dick Brewer. I wish I had gotten one from Mr. Downing. I wish I had gotten one from Ben Ipa. I wish I had gotten one from, the list goes on and on. I can still go out one and get a handmade board by John Pizell, that surfers could collect these beautiful handcrafted boards, one of a kind, is pretty amazing. I wish I had more boards. Anyway, I have Thomas Campbell told me once I had the crappiest quiver of any surfer he's ever met, and I'm kind of proud of that. And of course, we have our swim fins that we go swimming with. Sometimes it's shoe fins to go snorkeling, and obviously it's the fin when I get to go body surfing. So we have options.
Yes.
I'm waiting till I get old before I take up SUP in golf, though. No, I don't have enough room in the garage. Between the surfing and the body surfing and the snorkeling, my dance card is pretty full. As cool and wonderful as foiling looks, I don't know if I need it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So here's a kind of awkward question. If you were to reflect on all the years in the water, all the years riding waves, what have you sort of taken away from it? What have you learned from it all?
All those years in the water, all these years riding waves, what have I learned? It's kept me out of trouble.
Good answer. Yeah.
It's you think about surfing, it's just, you say it's silly, you say it's useless, but it's kept a lot of us sane. It's so many surfers healing groups where we know the ocean and the energy and the salt air. It's healing, it's soothing, it's meditative, it's calming, it's better than taking drugs, I suppose, getting tired and exhausted and relaxed in the surf as opposed to pharmaceutically trying to find the balance. I don't know. It's, that we ride waves, play on waves. It's not finding a cure for cancer. It's not solving homelessness. It's not doing anything truly positive for society. But so many of us do it, and it gives us enjoyment. And so maybe there doesn't always have to be a reason for things.
Yeah.
Somehow you and I have this crazy friendship that's gone on for decades over this mutual enjoyment of waves. I don't know how that makes sense, but it does.
Yeah, it very much does.
Yeah, people have built lives and careers and homes and properties and have fed their families because of this dance with the ocean.
Yeah.
And it goes on. And so I don't know. And it gets more and more popular because of guys like me doing podcasts telling people how cool it is. So I am the enemy. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a good way out.
Guilty as charged.
Thank you, Mark.
Bailiff, take him away. Thank you.
Soundings is brought to you by the Surfer's Journal and is produced by me, Jamie Brisick, and Jonathan Shiflett. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Our theme song is Give Me a Wave by Asuka Matsumiya and Paz Lenchantin. The Surfer's Journal is a reader-supported publication made possible by sponsorship from FCS, Finisterre, Howler Brothers, Outerknown, Patagonia, Rainbow Sandals, Vans, and Yeti. The journal is published bi-monthly. If you haven't done so yet, I encourage you to visit surfersjournal.com and subscribe. This episode of Soundings is presented by Costa Sunglasses, the badge of the explorer. For over 40 years and counting, Costa has remained steadfast in their dedication to not only crafting the most durable, functional, and long-lasting eyewear, but in protecting our waterways and natural resources. Whether you're on the back deck scanning for yellowtail, eyeing a set swinging wide at an empty point, camped out on a bluff at the end of a rotted two-track, or anywhere and everywhere in between, Costas are built to help you see what's out there. Head over to costadelmar.com today to find just the right pair for you, no matter where the water takes you. Thank you for listening to Soundings, and until next time.